Good. Hello, everyone. It's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, this looks a little dark on my end, so I'm apologizing in advance if it comes across as kind of dark, meaning the look itself. My wife and I, we're in Nairobi. That's why I'm not in my official studio. I have this awesome video from Qatar where I was able to talk to one of the cab drivers. It was a mind-blowing conversation. Some of the stuff he was saying that was taking place there, it was amazing. But I'm gonna upload that video. Look. One of the things I know, this is a detour, and it kind of pulled me away. It's a detour. I said a long time ago, or a while ago, or a few months ago, let's be specific. If I had absolute power and I could change our education system, I would do so in a way where kids were rotated around the globe. Many people had the opportunity to send their kids elsewhere at a very, very young age. Now, the reason I would do that is it would allow you to get a larger context in other human beings. It is hard for me to bomb, to kill, to be okay with bombing and killing, and to be dispassionate with people being killed when I know that person. Like, my wife, her and I would have these conversations, and she would be like, I don't get worked up about this stuff like you do. And I kept putting it to, I think you don't get worked up, because when I see something in media about somebody being killed, when I see us talking about going to war in Syria over Idlib, on somebody else's territory, no less, I don't think of the people being killed as just random people out in the ether. I think of them as the people who I met in my way. I think of them as a cab driver that was talking to the guitar. I think of him as the guy who I met in Egypt, who was a Christian living in a Muslim nation, professing his faith to me. Those are the people I see getting killed and mangled. It's not a distant, dispassionate thing of something else is happening somewhere and we're whatever. I'm trying to make my ends. I don't think of it that way. My hope was she would think of it in similar terms as I think of when she's interacting with people. I don't know if that's true or not. I could be wrong. But my point is, I want to be able to bring you guys these interviews. One of the things I saw was the Joe Rogan show, where Joe Rogan apparently is getting into this South African thing, this white South African farmers thing. I would have loved to go to South Africa. Now, South Africa was part of the journey at first. It changed. But I was trying to do a mini hop to go from point A to point B in order to go to South Africa to actually talk to people about what's happening in South Africa. I don't live there. I don't know. It's one thing that you should read in the media. Sometimes the stuff is information filtered, let's say it that way, depending on the society that you're living in. So it's hard to know. I'm not massacring fucking farmers. I know that much. I would love to go there and talk to them. All right. So I thought I had a pretty decent rig set up. First point, the light is not as bright as I thought it was going to be. Not a huge fail. I can work with that. And I have a monitor here. And the monitor here uses a USB port. And because the monitor uses a USB port, it doesn't pick it up as an actual monitor. It picks it up as something else. So we're going to make this shit work. We move on. Soapbox moves on. All right. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. I know I'm going to do that first before going to the story. I always do. The New York City elections. Now, I know I hit the story 20,000 feet in the sky. It was pitch black on the airplane. Everybody was asleep. My wife was unconscious. I was wide awake for the entire 12-hour flight. And I took pain meds. Pain meds keep me up. It doesn't put me out. And I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm going to do the news. And I say, look, I went to the bathroom and do the news. And she's like, Oh, okay. I take that as an approval. And I go do the news. I was pissed off with the New York City elections because I'm like, it's basic. It's basic. Like it's from the standpoint of a representative government or democracy or something where the public itself gets to make its will felt in what we consider to be a democratic process, especially for a state that is larger than many nations. I can't say most because I don't know if it's most, but many nations. California is what? The 5th largest economy? New York can't be that far behind. You can't even get voting right. How do you not get voting right? How do you not get voting right? Now, this is not to be dickish. I don't mean this to be dickish. So I'm going to say that in advance. And I know the very act of saying that this is not meant to be dickish means that the thing that's coming up after this is going to be somewhat dickish. It's kind of like a compound. We have a compound within a compound within a compound that we're living in Kenya. We get to the house, to the residence, and my wife's, and she's doing a video. She's trying to do a travel day. And she says, I said, yeah, having multiple compounds like this and with security guards at each point doesn't make me feel all that safe. Like, if you're holding a gun for safety, I immediately don't feel safe. It's this kind of contradiction in terms. This is somewhat of a paradox. If I have to have a gun, that means I'm not safe. Otherwise, why would I have to have a gun? Same thing with the compound thing. The very act of having a compound means that there's a reason for you to have a compound. People are not going to invest their labor and energy into building a compound for shits and giggles, particularly if you're putting 2 compounds in. I make that point, and she's like, well, I don't feel that unsafe. And I'm like, you just got here. It's like, you don't know anything about this place. God, I'm sorry. I'm going off the rails today. All right. I'm going to show this. As you know, many people weren't able to vote in the New York City elections. Now, take a look at this. And I've screwed this up already, just in the organization of this, because I've gone off the rails so often. I apologize. Take a look at this. I'm going to have it. This is going to be a little weird when I first switch it over, but you'll see what I'm doing. You'll know who this is. She's ferocious here. And I gave her all the credit in the world for this, because I loved it from beginning to end. I'm going to show just a piece of this.
Okay. This smells. This doesn't just smell to the public right now that the budget of the party was never put before. Forget about the budgetary committee for a second. Put before the people who have a fiduciary responsibility, whether it's Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, whether it's Donna Brazile when she was chair, when she was vice chair, or Vice Chair Ray Buckley, or Dr. Jim Zombie over here. That's over half the executive committee right there. Had no idea where the money was going. We spent $1 billion. Lost the easiest presidential race you could possibly imagine. With joint fundraising agreements, state parties weren't being funded. During the DNC chairs race, there were some state party chairs who said, I'm an acting executive director, I have $3,000 cash on hand. How are you supposed to rebuild the party if you have no idea where that money was spent? And you know what? I did go through FEC filings, and it doesn't look good. It smells. We're talking about close to $700 to $800 million between the joint fundraising agreement and the DNC being spent on 5 consultants. This is not a public outrage issue. The DNC chairs are upset, the officers are upset, and I don't know who's on the budget and finance committee. I did go to the meeting. It was 15 minutes long, and there was a pie chart that was put on screen. But as a Democratic Party member of this commission, we have a
That's on Miki Kantz. She's being ferocious. I think that's awesome. Personally, I think that's awesome. Now, they've come up with a unity agreement that reduces the superdelegates and everything else. So, she has made gains. Fair point. Nomiki lives in New York. And she was one of these people who didn't get to vote. Look at this. This is... I show this only because it's symbolic. That's the only reason. I don't mean to be dickish on this. I swear to God. I just thought this was funny, which is why I'm showing it like this. But I'm going to make a larger point, so let me show this first.
So I'm going to call the Board of Elections now. All right, guys, I came in with so much excitement, and then they didn't have me on the roll. And I had to fill out a provisional ballot, an affidavit. I'm very concerned about this, so I'm going to call the Board of Elections now because I was not, even though I'm registered there and I brought my identification, the form that they gave me confirming I was registered here, I was not on the roll. So I had to fill out a provisional ballot. And who knows when they're going to count that provisional ballot.
Oh, God, it didn't flip over. All right, let's try this again. You probably could hear her, but couldn't see her, so let's try this again.
I feel... All right, guys, I came in with so much excitement, and then they didn't have me on the roll. And I had to fill out a provisional ballot, an affidavit. I'm very concerned about this, so I'm going to call the Board of Elections now because I was not, even though I'm registered there and I brought my identification, the form that they gave me confirming I was registered here, I was not on the roll. So I had to fill out a provisional ballot. And who knows when they're going to count that provisional ballot.
They're not. They're not going to count that provisional ballot. They're not going to count that provisional ballot. You effectively didn't vote. Not because you didn't want to vote. You wanted to vote. Like you said, you started that morning with so much excitement. And God, hit in the face, bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. Do you honestly believe that the person who was part of the Unity Reform Commission wasn't a registered voter of the Democratic Party going back for God knows how long? Back how long? Let's go into the details for the moment. So this took place back in, all right, this was the election in 2016. I remember this because I was there. Oh, thank you, somebody. And there was a floating head. Why is there a floating head? Okay, there's a floating head. Thank you, somebody. I'll check it in a moment. Let me finish this first. So, there's right here. New York City broke federal and state law. How did New York City break federal and state law? I'll tell you how they broke federal and state law. Because they threw 200,000 people off the voting rolls. 200,000 Americans. People who had every right constitutionally given to go and put their name, place their vote for the person who they wanted to win and run their state. Does that change an election? Tell me. Now, if 200,000 people were thrown off the rolls in Brooklyn, was the election fair? If New York City broke federal and state election laws, shouldn't there be a consequence for New York breaking federal state election law? And don't take my word for it, right here. New York City Board of Elections is admitting it broke state and federal law when it improperly removed voter from the rolls ahead of the presidential primary last spring, including more than 117,000 voters in Brooklyn. That's according to a draft consent decree announced Tuesday, nearly a year after the board was sued in federal court for violating the National Voter Registration Act and state election law. As part of the settlement, right here, let's get to the consequence. That's the interesting part. As part of the settlement, the Board of Elections agreed to a series of remedial measures that will be in place at least through the next presidential election. At least through the next presidential election, November 2020, pending court approval. The deal restores the rights of improperly purged voters and establishes a comprehensive plan to prevent illegal voter purges in future elections. Oh, that's awesome. I love this decree. I see their willingness to grapple with this problem as a significant step forward, says Susan Lerner, head of the Good Governance Group of Common Cause New York, the lead plaintiff in the case. I'm glad you do. I don't. The lawsuit was originally filed in November 2016 by the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, Latino Justice, PRLDEF, and DShirt, LLP, on behalf of Common Cause New York, and several individual plaintiffs. In early 2017, both the Justice Department and New York State Attorney General's office made motions to join the lawsuit. They should have, saying it broke federal and state law. The suit was commenced because there were real problems, said Ezra Rosenberg with Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. People were being kicked off the voter list even though they were eligible to vote in New York City. That's peculiar. That's peculiar. Now, at the time, I was one of those people who said charges should be pressed. That makes me seem like a hard ass. I don't mean to be a hard ass. And I'm not typically the person who wants to throw people in prison. I tend to be dramatically against it. We have 5% of the people, world's population, 25% of that population in our prisons. So 25% of the prison population in our prisons. So I'm not that guy typically, but this is different. This is the democratic process itself. Meaning, if you can't get basic voting right, one of the largest economies in the world, if you can't get basic voting right, then how do you have a democracy? How do you have a representative government? How do you have the very building blocks of a society itself? How can you call yourself a democracy if you can't get the very basics of democracy right? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm on a plane and I'm looking at this and I'm like, how can you not get the basics right? How are the people not outraged by this? And how, yes, are people not prosecuted? Yes, that's where I'm at. Because, take a look at this. What Nomiki was talking about, do you believe that she was alone? No, she wasn't alone. Mayor Bill de Blasio's own son couldn't vote. His own son couldn't vote. Ain't that just special? And look right here. I've invited Ari Berman onto my show to discuss what's taking place in New York and to discuss voting and election integrity issues in general. Some of my patrons have expressed interest in having someone who can talk about this in a decent way and make their point. Now, so a number of New Yorkers, including the son of New York City's mayor, showed up to vote in today's statewide primaries and were told they were not registered to vote. It's the latest in a string of incidents highlighting states' perverse voting rights and procedures that make it one of the hardest places in the country to register and vote despite the liberal leanings. No. You're being too easy. You're being far, far too easy. These people were registered to vote. All of these people were registered to vote. Do you believe that Mayor Bill de Blasio's son wasn't registered? Do you believe that Nomi wasn't registered? They were registered to vote. This is different. This is different. This is not the same thing. That's not the same thing. Like, it's not a situation of I am trying to vote in the process and somehow I'm being excluded from the process. This looks like people who are already on the voting rolls being expunged from those voting rolls. How am I wrong? That's what it is. These people who are registered to vote. And to make my point, look at this. Look at this. That's my point is, this is not perverse voting laws and procedures. This is people being expunged from the voting rolls. These people were registered to vote. They've been registered to vote. And for whatever reason, when they went to just vote, even though they had been registered to vote for a period of time, they weren't there. The voting rolls didn't have them. That's a weird thing. But I'm making the point that that doesn't sound like a voting law. That doesn't sound like somebody being excluded from the voting process. I want to vote, and now, I need to have registered by X amount of time. But no, this sounds like something different. This sounds like people being expunged from the rolls. There is no voting law that is expunging people in this way. That's all I'm saying. God, I shouldn't put that as an absolute. I can't say it as absolute. Fair enough, I can't say it as an absolute. So let's keep going. Right here. Jill Jorgensen. New York City's mayor, son Dante, was forced to vote by affidavit ballot despite showing up at his polling place with a voting card from the Board of Elections. He wasn't on the rolls. Other New Yorkers who were told they weren't registered when they attempted to vote included prominent journalists Rebecca Traister of the New York Magazine and Lydia Palgreen, editor of the Huffington Post. Wow, the editor of the Huffington Post. God, that's brutal. That's brutal. Guess who wasn't on the rolls this morning at the polling place I voted for 4 years? Happened to be too. Same thing happened to Julie Evanston, a voting rights attorney from the ALCU. I was inexplicably removed from the voting rolls this morning and had to vote by affidavit ballot. Not a good look. Do you believe that these people were the only ones? They weren't. While it was not immediately clear how widespread this problem was or why it occurred, New York has some of the worst voting laws in the country. Unlike 37 states, New York has no early voting. Unlike 27 states, it requires people to seek an absentee ballot to provide an excuse under penalty of perjury for why they would not be present on election day. Unlike 15 states, it doesn't have election day registration, and unlike 14 states, it doesn't have automatic voter registration. To vote at Thursday primary, people had to register with a party by October 13, 2017, 11 months before the election. As a result of this antiquated system, New York routinely ranks as the bottom of the country in voter turnout. In 2017, the same year, ranked 42nd in voter turnout, the Board of Elections in Brooklyn admitted it had wrongly purged 120,000 registered voters from the rolls. So, wait a minute, I'm looking for something. Oh, right here, 200,000. All right, I'm looking at this. It's 200. He's saying 120,000. Maybe he's talking about from Brooklyn itself. I'm talking about from New York State. That's true that in Brooklyn it was 117,000 purged. So fair enough. He's being far too kind. I'm sorry, you're being far too kind. That subset of people that were purged, I'm pretty sure that when they do a tally, it will be a large number of people that were purged. We're not talking about voting laws. That's what I want to make very clear. This is not a situation of New York makes it difficult to vote. This is people had been on the voting rolls, have voted in the previous elections, and show up to this election and were eradicated from the rolls. That's different than a law that's stopping somebody from voting. I hope that's clear. They just admitted to getting rid of 200,000 people off the voting rolls. And this is why I was pushing for prosecutions. This is why I didn't want to slap on the wrist. Because within a few years, in the shadow of the last failure, another failure. It's fucking amazing. That is fucking amazing. All right, let's see who's here. Hold on. Let me do this first. All right. I usually have my thing where I can bounce back to both, but unfortunately, that is not the way we're rolling today. Wow, I cannot believe this many people are here. Why are this many people here? All right, fair enough. I'll take it. Thank you all for showing up. I know it's very late back in the States. It's 8 in the morning here. My wife and I are going to be, my schedule for the most part is going to stay the same. She's going to have to be working during United States hours, and I am probably just going to be right up with her. So my show is probably not going to change from the standpoint of time frame. At least I don't think it is. I will have to find something for this monitor, though. Definitely have to find something for that, because this is going to be a pain in the ass. Because I'm doing power chats, I'm trying to, without the other monitor, it becomes nearly impossible. But let's make it work. All right, so first, Andrew Church. Thank you, Andrew Church. And you know what? I don't even think I gave the announcement today saying Streamlabs. Thank you very much. I guess what I'm saying is, instead of Super Chat, people contribute to Streamlabs. And look at the channel still demonetized. I'm still waiting on YouTube. Peter Douche statement. Obviously, Nomiki wasn't on a donor pre-approved. Oh, I saw this. This was funny as hell. Peter Douche's statement. Obviously, Nomiki wasn't on the donor pre-approved Democratic Rising Star supporter voting rolls list. It's one of the secret ones we had to pay millions to Hillary Clinton for. God, the reason why I'm showing Nomiki in this, and I don't mean to poke fun at Nomi. I even invited her on the show, by the way. So it's not me hitting from the shadows, if that makes sense. I'm not a yapper. I'm not a yapping dog. I'm not hitting from the shadows. I invited her on the show. I even told her I won't bring up the Democratic Reform Commission. I'll keep it basically to what's taking place in New York with the standpoint of voting. She ignored me like she always ignores me. I still pursue, still sending out invites. But there is something symbolic with the person who was there pushing for reforms to the Democratic Party not able to vote in the Democratic Party. Oh! God, that burns! That burns. That just hurts. That just hurts, man. That just hurts something deep. I watch all types of channels. I watch Not Even Right, Loony Left, and everything in between. Oh, God. Uh-oh. Joe Teresa, you guys are getting into a fight. What did Joe say? Joe said something disparaging about me. I'm here because people live in an echo chamber where you only watch what reinforces your insane theories. What's the theory? I didn't give a theory. What is the theory? What do you believe my theory is? My thesis of this is that a bunch of people weren't able to vote. I didn't say it was nefarious. I just said people weren't able to vote. That was somewhat as a flat fact. Does not mean making anything up or theory. Nomi was part of the Democratic Reform Commission. She was not able to vote. She put on the provisional ballot, and we know provisional ballots tend to get ignored. What theory is this? What are you talking about? 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 I just want to see what Joe was saying. Right here. And the myth of burning losing because, right here. New York purged 20,000 votes. I never even brought that up. You're bringing up stuff that wasn't brought up. Just to be clear, Joe, because I want you to admit that you were wrong. Oh, okay, fair enough. I'm just saying, what do you want to say? What do you want to say? One or two things. Whether it's plain incompetence or whether it was something nefarious. Can you agree with me? Can we meet in a particular middle ground where we agree, we own up to, you gotta get voting right? Can we admit to that point? Can you? No, Joe's not a troll. Okay, fair enough. I'm like, God, you can't be arguing with us. Like, you gotta get voting right. Voting is basic. It's fundamental. Like, right now, there's an election that's taking place in Florida with, he's a Democrat. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think he's maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being too, yeah. I'm getting to that one. I'm going to that one too. No, why are you talking about blocking this guy? Look, we're the left. Be the left. No, seriously, be the left. And what I mean by that is, I would block people if I thought they were cowards. I would block people if I thought they were just not adding anything substantive to the conversation. Joe disagrees with us. That's all I mean. He disagrees with us. Like, he doesn't see anything real democracy. Oh, girl, this is what I mean. I don't want him to be able to say that. God, I don't want him to be able to say that. No. What I mean is, I invite people to make their case. Whatever that case is. I don't like this thing of purging, man. That's all. And whether Joe believes that there was nothing nefarious there, which I don't buy, so there's that, or it was just buffoonery. Buffoonery tends to always, for whatever reason, go in the place of power. Joe doesn't see any coincidence here. But whatever. Joe's a Democrat. Fair enough. But that's not is that really enough to banish somebody? Oh, God, that hurts, man. God, that hurts. Yeah. I'm just saying, buffoonery or not, that's fundamental. It's fundamental. Yeah, that's fundamental. It's aggravating, man. Like, it's aggravating. Voting is basic. There's an election right now that's taking place in Florida. And, you know, in that election, they purged, or they burned burned is too strong, but they destroyed the ballots. Now, in destroying the ballots, that's illegal. Flat fact, illegal. Whether you want to say there's something suspicious about it, I don't care. It's illegal. Zero consequence. Zero consequence. They did something that was dramatically illegal. The reason why you don't burn the ballots or get rid of the ballots is because you need to have the ability to go back and look at the ballots. If anything happens, if somebody challenges the vote, it is your right to challenge that vote. Otherwise, how do you know in the integrity of your voting process if you can't go back and challenge the vote? Now, when God, his name slipped from me just that quick. He's going against Deborah Wasserman-Schultz, Tim Canova. When Tim Canova went to challenge the vote, because being sane, he has every right to do so, seeing as people are pushing him to run in the race, and he has to do, as a politician, everything in his power to affect their will. They were gone. There was nothing there. The best thing that they had was some kind of printout, which, no, I'm sorry. Printout doesn't work. You need to have the ballots. You just broke the law. What was the recourse? Zero recourse. There was nobody that stood up for him on this. It essentially just went unanswered. Do you understand the problem with this? Like, this is an undermining of the democratic process itself. Whether you want to say there was something nefarious, whether you want to say it was buffoonery, I don't care. There's something wrong with that. And there should be a consequence for that. Should be a consequence. When the state does something illegal, it isn't illegal. God, I know, right? When the president does something illegal, it's not illegal. Frost Nixon. Unfortunately, that seems to be the rule, right? Seems to be the fucking rule. Whatever you want to think, be it buffoonery, or, for that matter, be it buffoonery or nefarious, can we at least acknowledge that it shouldn't happen and that there should be consequences for it when it does happen? Because I'll give you this, the people who don't think it's buffoonery are not wrong for thinking that there's something nefarious there, especially when it continues to happen over and over and over again and always goes in a particular direction. So let's be fair. Let's see. Here's another one. Redneckonomics. What's going on? What do you think it would take to fix the voting system, or is it FUBAR? Putting people in prison. Putting people in prison will fix the voting system almost overnight. If instead of slapping people on the wrist, they went in and investigated, the feds went in and investigated, the state went in and investigated, and the charges were put into place, yeah, you think they would have fucked up royally again this quickly within the course of like 2 years? No, hell no. Hell no. There's no consequence, so there's no reason for them to do anything about it. Whether you want to say, again, it's buffoonery, or whether you want to say it's nefarious, there's no consequence. There's no consequence to any fucking thing. I mean, that's aggravating to me. I gotta be honest, that's aggravating to me. How do you have a democratic process without... Yeah. I don't think it's... Joe, calling it buffoonery is giving it the best light on the planet. Have you ever watched Star Trek, the original series? And my wife, when we were watching the original series, one of the things she always brings up, I think my mom brings this up too, is like, God, look at the lighting. These women in this perfect makeup with this lighting that's so soft. Their skin is so soft. The lighting is amazing. That's the lighting that you're given the buffoonery that took place in the 2016 election in New York. That's what I think. That's my opinion on it. But fair enough. You're not banished for having a different opinion. Nixon wasn't qualified. Big fan of Star Trek originally. Yeah, right. I know, right? I love it. I love the original series. I'm going to end it here, but I am honestly going to do the Star Trek thing. I don't know if I'm going to put it on a different channel. Back in the day when people were locked up for voter fraud, yeah. I love F Troop. I've never watched F Troop. He mentions Star Trek. Everyone take a drink. And Hello Jerk. What's happening, Hello Jerk? What was the most democratic series? What do you mean? From standpoint of the episodes? I mean, Star Trek is weird in this way, right? I mean, if... You know, it's funny. Somebody says Star Trek was fascist. And I watched this video and I realized he has no political understanding. I mean, if it's a situation where the society itself evolves, like if society says this is a better way to be, and looks back at us in a way that we looked at ancient Rome, like an ancient Roman can say, hey, you know, when I have all of this money here, I could have slaves and I could have people having these fights and I can have all of the stuff that you guys can't have. You guys are fascists. No, we're not fascists. We just fucking evolved. We realized one was a better path. It's not fascist if you agree. And the very moment you have a society where that society is cast a particular way, there are going to be forces that try to keep the society cast that particular way. So when Star Trek, I don't know, it gets rid of money, it's a choice. It's a democratic choice. I'm trying to make that clear. It's not fucking fascist. The moment you hear they're making a... Yes, I did. Yes, I did. They're making a new Picard show. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. What's the difference between slaves and workers? A few extra dollars. Kalita, it's a few extra dollars. I don't see that much of a difference, if I'm being honest. Yes, there's a difference from the standpoint of level of freedom. But fact is, you can never maximize your profit with slaves. I mean, ultimately, you need people to buy stuff for you to make more stuff. The move to capitalism, yes, hurt the slave owners. Who gives a shit about slave owners? When you can maximize your profit to wage that's unfathomable. And in the middle of that, you can have people claiming, screaming at the hilt that they're free while working 50 hours a week. I find that to be amazing. It's like, what did you do all day? Oh, I was toiling away for somebody in some company where that guy is expropriating the wealth to the top. And I was doing a task that I had very little control over. And that when I left, all of my work stayed with them. That's what I was doing all day. I was doing something that I was completely disinterested in, only to the degree that it allows me to get a paycheck. Oh, but I'm free. I'm in the land of the free. It's like, fuck out of here. But you must understand. In the same way the Star Trek universe has a certain cast, anybody growing up in that will find that to be normal. And would look at that as being perfectly normal and rational in a way for society to behave. As they get older, they may question society, but many times those questions don't really come in unless you're having a really fucking shitty life. And fact is, the people in the Star Trek universe have their needs met. They're healthy, they're happy, this idea of capitalism would be nonsense. It would make no sense to them. It would make no sense at all. Jesus was a commie, pass it on. I love that part, Alexis. Why didn't WikiLeaks release a single piece of bad information about Trump? Oh, he has burned feelings, he has hurt feelings. Oh, don't be bitter, Joe. Don't be bitter. Baltazar, what will happen first? A fight doesn't happen in the comments of a Jamarl live stream or Jimmy realizes Jinx sold out and leaves TYT. Did you hear a video? I was thinking about doing a video on this. Cenk Uygur says the information that was released in the media shouldn't have been released in the media because you want to keep all options open in assassinating another leader of another country. I was like, what? He should have immediately said after it, and by the way, don't forget I'm deeply progressive. I'm deeply progressive. I couldn't believe he said that shit. Now, I know I pick on Jake sometimes. Fair enough. And in fair karmic terms, same thing happens to me. Fair enough. But for fuck's sake, that's just extreme. That is really extreme. Yeah, Cenk has always been a libertarian frat boy and a war boner. Yeah, man, but shit. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know how you use the term deeply progressive, and you're in the media, and you're making this argument that information should have been withheld from the public, with leaders talking about assassinating another world leader. Understand what's being said here. This completely loses all context. What is the reason that the leader is being assassinated? What is the international political realities that are facing you? What is the real political realities? Not the bullshit that's bandied about in the media. What's the real political realities, the geopolitical effects? And is it necessary to do it? Is it necessary to do it? Meaning, are you doing it purely because you want to create some kind of geopolitical, this kind of chess game? Or are you doing it because you think, if I don't do this, this person is going to start a nuclear war? I guess this is it's just a weird thing to say from a lefty. But for a guy who calls himself a lefty, just really fucking bizarre. Yes, I'm going to print that. I'm sorry, I'm going to print that. I'm going to print that. I mean, it's aggravating. Because if the relationship between North Korea and South Korea gets downplayed, like they make him seem like he's a lunatic. It's a dictatorship. Yeah, it is. But we interact with other dictatorships, and we have no issue with interacting with those dictatorships. This is more to do with geopolitical influence. This is less to do with this guy firing off a missile. Any honest broker can see that, or at the very least, will know that. The idea that you're going to whack him as if it is your... Now look like it's cutting back on. Oh, it's cutting back on. All right. I didn't know this was going to cut back on. Look, I'm going to end it here. I'm annoyed. I was annoyed by that, yes. I was annoyed by that. Like, I nearly fell off the chair when I heard that. Lindsey Graham, I get it. He's bloodthirsty. He's a psychopath. I understand. And I get this too. When Cenk Uygur said Nerf bombs, the appraisal of him changed because I couldn't tell if he was a useful idiot or just dangerous. And it sounds like a little bit of both. Taking the position of Lindsey Graham, where Lindsey Graham is talking about whacking a world leader and saying, hey, you may need to do that. This was in the context of Kim Jong-un. And one would have to believe that Kim Jong-un was going to attack another country. We also would have to weigh what are the antagonisms that are provoking somebody to behave a particular way. Because let's be clear, it's no such thing as a person living in a sandbox. People are living in, it's other countries. It's pivoting against other nations. The relationship between the United States presses on North Korea. The decisions that North Korea takes to some degree is being influenced by its neighbors, including specifically China. It's not as simple to say, let's whack a guy. That's shallow fucking thinking on nobody's business. It's just massively shallow thinking. All right. Did you hear what Bolton said? We don't answer to World Court. Yeah, I saw that one too. John Bolton essentially attacking the International Criminal Court. Did you see that shit? That was amazing. Like, do you know how embarrassing that is? John Bolton, here's the problem, and the reason why John Bolton is doing that. John Bolton was around during the Bush administration at the time where those crimes were being committed. It is very possible that the International Criminal Court will be going after John Bolton. That's the reason why John Bolton is so antagonistic to the International Criminal Court. Fact is, we've been breaking the law in the things that we've been doing. Whether you want to call it torture, whether you want to call it these black sites, we've been breaking the law. We've even been breaking our own law. These are Orwellian interpretations of what it means to be tortured. Yeah, John Bolton would say that because John Bolton could be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court. No, the United States is not a signatory. Yes, Afghanistan is, meaning they can investigate those crimes. I hope that makes sense. I don't have the article up because I wasn't going to talk about this, at least not in the immediate, but I have read through several parts of it. I prefer Michael Bolton. In fact, I celebrate his entire career. You know, the sad part is, when I say John Bolton, I often fuck up and say Michael Bolton. I have a weird tangential thinking. No, spooks are dead, you idiot. You know what? I would say this about Joe. I would say this. And Joe, I'm going to give you a compliment. You come into the Lions Den. You know that people are going to dislike what you're going to say. And you say it anyway. In that sense, yes, you're a troll. But you're not a troll to the extent of saying absurd or horrible things. That's why I keep you here. Because you're right. We do get this kind of echo chamber type thing. And you sharpen arguments. Where in the world is Jamal? I'm in Nairobi. Yeah, I'm in Nairobi. We are going to be in Cairo in a few weeks. And I'm going to try not to get burlap sacked when I ask people questions about Cairo. Last time I was in Cairo, it was in 2008, I think. Not really a vacation. My wife and I, pirate elects. Last year, my wife and I like to travel. And I've done the globe hopping thing once before. I've done the globe hopper thing, but it was singular by myself. I've always wanted to travel, like to disconnect and go. Last year, my wife and I were like, God, man, these trips are getting expensive. And it's like, how do you cheapen the trip? You can cheapen the trip just by, call it news reporting. Yeah, it is news reporting. That's literally what I'm going to be doing when I'm talking to people. The problem with the trips are jumping from the United States to anywhere else costs so much money. It's so expensive. But once you get abroad, it's cheaper. Like if I'm in, if I want to go from the U.S. to Cairo, I'm going to pay maybe, let's say, roughly $1,000. If I want to go from Nairobi to Cairo, it's, let's say, $200, $300. If you're in Europe and you're trekking around Europe, you can get to Europe like $60, $70 from transportation. The problem with this stuff is always the issue of transport out of the United States because it's brutally expensive. That said, once you leave, not so much. And here's the thing. Somebody was like, did he win the lottery? He didn't win the lottery. Oftentimes, no, it's not, God knows it's not winning the lottery. It's a fucking pay cut. When, the amount that you pay for rent, the amount that you pay for a car insurance, all that stuff. Like, think of all the shit that you pay for within the course of a month. How much does it come up to? Now, what if you could transfer that money to just wherever you were? Meaning, you're going to have to pay that money anyway. Why the fuck are you paying it in the United States if you could have helped paying it in the United States? Now, that's not always an option because it depends on the job and everything else. But for us, I was in software. So last year when we were talking about it, I was thinking from a standpoint, I just work remotely from software and we can live anywhere. Her thing was medical coding, so she was like, fair enough. Now, because for her, she could also get a position working remote, digital nomads. And between that year and now, I started to dump absurd amount of time into the show. Like I would literally work all day, 8 hours, and then spend like another 6 hours on the show. You can imagine that would lead to certain problems, especially from the standpoint of relative interest. Between doing something that I loved versus doing something that I was lukewarm to at best, all things being equal, you do the thing that you like the most. And so that's where we went with it. Now, from that standpoint, it was, all right, how do we make this work? And do it remotely. I would have to pay expenses anyway. When we moved over to my mom's house, the plan was stay there for 3 months and go. Don't get a lease, because if you get a 12-month lease, you're stuck. Can't go anywhere. I'm sorry, this is funny. So that was the plan. Was essentially we had to pay money anyway. We have to pay all of these expenses anyway. Let's pay them elsewhere. So the plan. So there's certain places where we save money. There's certain places where you pay more money. The plan is to have those places kind of level out. The money that was saved from the standpoint of living with my mom for 3 months or 4 months, slightly weird, but I think she enjoyed it. It turned out to not be bad, actually. It turned out to be actually pretty cool being one mom before we left. That was able to save money, and that essentially paid for the trip out and paid for the ticket back when we need to come back. So once those two items were paid for, at that point it was, all right, what can we get rid of that we don't have to pay for? And then where are we going? All right, car insurance, done. Still have a car note, that doesn't go anywhere. Fuck. Can we get rid of medical insurance? Well, that's dicey, tight, maybe. The rent in the Roby will be cheaper, but you have to kind of estimate it in blocks. So you can say $50 a day for rent. How much do I pay for rent at home? That's roughly the same. It's going through that way. Yeah, right. At that point you say, I don't have to pay for internet. I don't have to pay for it. It's workable. The DNC is a private entity, can support whoever they want. Ish. That's ish. No, that's ish, man. That's ish. That's ish. I don't agree with you on that, Joe. Both parties support corruption. Yes. RNC does not endorse a candidate, you idiot. And that's true. They don't endorse a candidate. They don't endorse a candidate. I think Joe's point, though, is they can be corrupt all they want. It's not corruption if they're being corrupt because they're a private entity. I think that's his point. I think that's a gross point, but I think that's his point. I think that's his point. Don't have to, but should you? It's your mom. Help. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? We pay rent at that house. I don't like capitalism because of him. He's robbing poor, keeping them poor. Who are you talking about? I also have no internet bill, phone bill, electric bill. How did you pull that off, Snort? How did you pull that off? Joe Terezio, that was my point. God, that's a gross point, Joe. That's a gross point, man. That's a gross point, dude. That's a really gross point. I can be as corrupt as I want to be because I'm a private entity. Oh, that's gross. That's gross. That's extremely gross. But hey, points for honesty. Points for honesty. All right, my light is failing me. Oh, it's dark. All right, I'm going to end this because this is getting ridiculous. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. I have lanterns because my regular light wasn't going to fit into the bag, and these lanterns need to be recharged. But hey, that gives me 50 minutes. I can do a 50-minute video before it fails. Good to know. All right, guys. You'll have a good one. I'll see you shortly. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to do that in the dark. I'm not going to do it in the dark. Yeah, I'm not going to do it in the dark. In fact, I don't want you to look at me like this. Don't look at me, sir. Don't look at me. All right, so I am going to have patron appreciation. Let's see. Patron appreciation is probably going to be on Monday. My wife wants to go see giraffes today, and if I'm being honest, I wasn't supposed to be back till Monday anyway. So I'm not addicted to doing this. I just enjoy it, so I had to do it. Right here. This is what I'm trying to do. So yeah, patron appreciation is going to be Monday. Let me see if it's 5 o'clock in Eastern time. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Jesus Christ, it'll be 12 p.m. 12 a.m. here. Oh, all right. All right, patron appreciation is going to be Monday. That's going to hurt. That's going to burn. All right, my wife is going to be at work at what time? Yes, I'm tailoring to her because if it's too late at night, she nods off fast. So if it's 9 o'clock here, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 a.m. there. Okay. Nobody will be at a patron appreciation at 2 in the morning. All right. So how about this? All right. What about we doing in the morning? Yeah, we have to do it in the morning. All right. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 p.m. That's fine. All right. Let's do it in the morning. All right. So let's say this tentatively, because I may have a better idea. In fact, I might even be here this evening, depending on what time we get back. But patron appreciation, 5 p.m. Eastern. No, it can't be 5 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m. 9 a.m. Eastern. 9 a.m. Eastern, patron appreciation. I'm going to reinforce that in another video, so I don't expect everybody to know that. And I'll see you guys in a few. Thanks all.